Ketua Pusat Tanggungjawab USIM, tetamu-tetamu jemputan, kaki tangan akademik dan pentadbiran USIM, para pelajar Fakulti Perubatan dan Sains Kesihatan USIM, seterusnya hadirin dan hadirat sekalian. Saya, Dr. Nurliza Roslan akan bertindak sebagai pengacara majlis anda pada program pagi ini. Alhamdulillah, bersyukur kita kehadrat Allah Subhanahu Taala kerana dengan limpah kurnia dan izinnya dapat sama-sama kita berkumpul pada hari yang mulia ini untuk program Syarahan Perdana bertajuk Adult Immunisation from Research to National Policy yang akan disampaikan oleh Yang Bahagia Profesor Datin Dr. C. Ilina C. Isahak. Di kesempatan ini, Fakulti Perubatan dan Sains Kesihatan USIM selaku pihak penganjur ingin mengucapkan ribuan terima kasih kepada semua hadirinnya dan hadiratnya hadir ke majlis yang gemilang ini. Bagi memulakan majlis, dijemput Yang Berusaha Dr. Muhammad Faiz Muhammad Fawad untuk membacakan doa.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Al-Fatihah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Hamdan hamidin, hamdan syakirin, hamdan yuwafi ni'amahu wa yukafi'u mazidah. Ya Rabbana lakal hamd kama yanbaghi li jalali wajhika wa azimi sultanik. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala sayyidina Muhammadin nabiyil ummi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma inna nas'aluka salamatan fid din wa afiyatan fil jasad wa ziyadatan fil ilm wa barakatan fil rizq wa taubatan qabla al-maut ورحمة عند الموت ومغفرة بعد الموت. اللهم هون علينا في سكرات الموت والنجاة من النار والعفو عند الحساب. اللهم أحينا بالإيمان وأمسنا بالإيمان واحشرنا بالإيمان وادخلنا الجنة مع الإيمان برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا ولوالدينا وارحمهم كما ربونا صغارا ولجميع المسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Ya Allah, sesungguhnya kami berhimpun pada hari ini adalah untuk mengingatimu, memohon rahmat dan petunjuk daripadamu, serta mengabdikan diri yang kerdil ini terhadapmu. Ya Rabbul Jalil, wahai Tuhan sekalian alam. Ya Rahmanu Ya Rahim, dengan berkat rahmah dan inayahmu, kami memohon kepadamu agar diberikan kemudahan, kelancaran serta barakah sepanjang majlis syarahan Perdana Profesor Datin Dr. Cik Ilina Cik Isahak ini berlangsung. Sesungguhnya kami tiada kekuatan dan tidak ada daya upaya melainkan dengan izin daripadamu ya Allah bagi menjalankan majlis ini sesempurna perancangan. Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum, semoga dengan penganjuran majlis yang murni ini menjadi salah satu bentuk rezeki dan rahmat yang engkau kurniakan kepada kami untuk digunakan dengan cara yang bermanfaat, diridai olehmu ya Allah. Wahai ilahi, tiadalah niat sebesar zarah mahu dijadikan pemberian ini satu yang sia-sia mahu pun enggan disyukuri. Allahumma ja'al jam'ana hadha jam'an marhuma wa tafarruquna min ba'dihi tafarruqan ma'suma. Allahumma ihdinas siratal mustaqim siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim minan nabiyyin was-siddiqin wasyuhada'i wa hasuna ulaika rafiqa ya arhamar rahimin. Allahumma inna نسألك العافية في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم إنا نعوذ من البراس والجنون والجزام ومن سيء الأسقام. بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. ربنا عليك توكلنا وإليك أنبنا وإليك المصير. ربنا اصرف عنا عذاب جهنم إن عذابها كان غراما إنها ساءت مستقرا ومقاما. ربنا اغفر لنا ولإخواننا الذين سبقونا بالإيمان ولا تجعل في قلوبنا غلا للذين آمنوا ربنا إنك رؤوف رحيم. اللهم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Amin, amin, ya Rabbal Alamin. Majlis mengucapkan ribuan terima kasih di atas pembacaan doa itu tadi. Semoga yang baik kita mulai, yang baik juga kita didatangi, insya-Allah. Hadirin yang dihormati sekalian, tanpa melengahkan masa, majlis menjemput Yang Bahagia Profesor Datuk Dr. Muhammad Syamsi Muhammad Aris, Dekan Fakulti Perubatan dan Sains Kesihatan USIM untuk menyampaikan ucapan pengenalan biodata pemidato. Dipersilakan Prof.
Terima kasih Puan Pengerusi Majlis, Dr. Nuriliza, Membaca Doa, Dr. Fuad. Izinkan saya bermula dengan serangkap pantun. Fakulti Perubatan indah pandangan, di tepian tasik menambah ceria. Selamat datang tetamu sekalian. Lafaz bismillah, pembuka bicara. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Yang saya hormati Tuan Profesor Datuk Dr. Muhammad Riza Wahidin, Naib Chancellor USIM. Yang berbahagia pemidato hari ini yang kita hormati Profesor Datin Dr. Ilina Isahak, Pemidato Syarahan Perdana Fakulti Perubatan dan Sains Kesihatan USIM. Yang berbahagia Prof. Dr. Radi Ibrahim, Timbalan Naib Chancellor Akademik dan Antarabangsa USIM. Yang berbahagia Prof. Dr. Adnan Muhammad Yusof, Timbalan Naib Chancellor Hak Ehwal Pelajar dan Alumni Universiti Sains Islam Malaysia. Yang berbahagia Prof. Teknologis Dr. Sharifuddin Muhammad Syarani, Timbalan Naib Chancellor Penyelidikan dan Inovasi Universiti Sains Islam Malaysia, Ketua-Ketua Pusat Tanggungjawab USIM, tetamu-tetamu jemputan sekalian, kaki tangan akademik dan pentadbiran USIM, dan juga para pelajar Fakulti Perubatan dan Sains Kesihatan USIM. Tidak lupa juga kepada mereka yang mendengar syarahan perdana ini secara live di USIM TV. Alhamdulillah, hari ini merupakan hari yang bersejarah bagi Fakulti Perubatan dan Sains Kesihatan kerana pada hari ini, tanggal 10 hari bulan Mac 2022, merupakan kali pertama fakulti ini meraihkan seorang profesor untuk menjayakan syarahan perdana beliau di auditorium kita. Alhamdulillah, saya rasa kita perlu memberikan tepukan yang gemuruh kepada Prof. Dr. Ilina. InsyaAllah, Dato' NC, ini adalah bukan yang pertama dan bukan yang terakhir. Akan ada banyak lagi syarahan-syarahan perdana insyaAllah akan diberikan oleh sama ada pensyarah daripada profesor-profesor daripada Fakulti Perubatan, mahupun sebenarnya kami boleh buka kepada mana-mana profesor di USIM jika ingin membuat syarahan perdana mereka di sini. Saya juga ingin mengucapkan tahniah dan terima kasih kepada urus setia yang diketuai oleh Timbalan Dekan Penyelidikan dan Inovasi, Prof. Dr. Nazifah, dan juga of course Prof. Dr. Nurul Azbawati dan rakan-rakan sekalian, sama ada segi staf akademik dan juga staf takbiran yang telah bertungkus lumus, bukannya semalam, bukannya seminggu, tapi berbulan-bulan untuk menjayakan program ini. Saya rasa kita semua kenal siapa Prof. Datin Dr. Ilina Isahak. Saya sebenarnya merasa bangga kerana saya pernah menjadi pelajar kepada beliau. Right? Dan sekarang beliau berada di sini untuk terus menaburkan bakti beliau untuk anak-anak kita semua yang berada di USIM. Sepatutnya kita semua perlu merasa bangga kerana walaupun di usia yang begini, beliau masih sudi lagi bersama-sama dengan kami di USIM. Terima kasih Prof. Datin Dr. Ilina. Saya harap ini bukannya pengakhiran, ya Prof. Sebenarnya Prof. Datin Dr. Ilina bergiat dalam bidang vaksinologi dan sering dijemput untuk menyampaikan kertas saintifik dan juga seminar kepada pegawai perubatan, orang awam dan juga termasuk jemaah-jemaah haji sebelum mereka untuk menunaikan ibadah haji sebagai promosi pengambilan vaksin semasa mengerjakan haji. Untuk makluman, Prof. Datin Dr. Ilina telah berhijrah ke USIM pada tahun 2011. Right? Walaupun beliau berada di sini, beliau masih terus aktif dalam bidang penyelidikan terutama dalam bidang penyakit berjangkit, terutamanya khususnya vaksinologi, epidemiologi, penyakit berjangkit yang boleh dicegah oleh vaksin seperti rubella, hepatitis, virus B dan hepatitis A, infeksi virus papiloma manusia atau bahasa Inggerisnya human papilloma virus, infeksi herpes simplex, varicella, dengue, influenza dan meningitis meningococcal. Kajian epidemiologi setempat suatu penyakit, saya rasa semua faham, adalah amat penting untuk mengimplementasikan polisi pengimunan kebangsaan. Kini beliau meluaskan sumbangan beliau di USIM dengan menjadi ahli dan juga fellow untuk Institut Fatwa Sedunia Infat USIM dan juga Halal Pharmaceutical bersama dengan Halal Development Corporation. Beliau seringkali mewakili negara di peringkat Asia Pasifik dalam bidang penyakit-penyakit dan influenza. Sebelum saya menutup bicara, izinkan saya sekali lagi menghantar satu bentuk pantun. Pentas dihias semegah acara untuk tatapan tetamu semua. Mari bersama kita dengar syarahan perdana. Semoga ilmu manfaat bersama. Sekian. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih diucapkan kepada Yang Bahagia Dekan di atas ucapan pengenalan itu tadi. Hadirin dan hadirat sekalian, seterusnya majlis dengan sukacitanya menjemput Yang Bahagia Profesor Datuk Dr. Muhammad Reza Wahidin, Naib Chancellor Universiti Sains Islam Malaysia, bagi menyampaikan ucapan ringkas pencapaian dan kejayaan Pemidatu. Dipersilakan.
Testing. Okay. Terima kasih kepada Dr. Nurul Izzah, pengacara majlis, juga kepada Dr. Muhammad Fuad, pembaca doa kita pada pagi ini. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Salam integrasi, ilmu nakli dan ilmu akli. Yang berbahagia Profesor Datin, Dr. Cik Ilina, Cik Isahak, Pembidato Syarahan Perdana Fakulti Perubatan dan Sains Kesihatan USIM. Yang berbahagia Profesor Dr. Muhammad Rodi Ibrahim, Timbalan Naib Chancellor Akademi Antarabangsa USIM. Yang berbahagia Profesor Dr. Adnan Muhammad Yusof, Timbalan Naib Chancellor Hadiah Pelajar dan Alumni USIM. Yang berbahagia Profesor Teknologi Dr. Sharifuddin Muhammad Syahrani, Timbalan Naib Chancellor Pendidikan dan Inovasi USIM. Yang berbahagia Profesor Datuk Dr. Muhammad Samsi Muhammad Aris, Dekan Fakulti Perubatan dan Kesihatan USIM. Yang berbahagia Profesor Datuk Dr. Musa Ahmad, Pengurusi Jemaah Profesor USIM, Ketua-Ketua Pusat Tanggungjawab USIM, tetamu-tetamu jemputan kaki tangan akademik, pentadbiran USIM, para pelajar Fakulti Perubatan dan Sains Kesihatan USIM. Juga bagi tuan-tuan, puan-puan, saudara-saudari yang mengikuti acara ataupun majlis ini secara maya. Daripada awal lagi tiba dekat bangunan ni dikelilingi dengan doktor-doktor. Daripada pengacara majlis pada pembaca doa dikelilingi dengan doktor-doktor. Jadi insya-Allah kita semua sihatlah pada amin. Nak bagi pantun tak reti, sorry ya. Tapi telah diwakilkan oleh Prof Samsi. Hadirin hadirat sekalian. Prof. Datin Dr. Cik Ilina, Cik Isahak merupakan salah seorang figura penting di awal penubuhan fakulti ini. Beliau telah memberi sumbangan dalam pembentukan kurikulum subjek mikrobiologi bersama Dr. Nosani dan Dr. Siva Gauri Padmanabhan semasa beliau masih bersama UKM lagi. Setelah bersara, Prof telah menerima pelawaan Profesor Emeritus Datuk Dr. Nik Muhammad Nasri Nik Ismail untuk memulakan kerjaya di USIM pada Januari 2011. Pada waktu itu hanya terdapat 2 orang pensyarah mikrobiologi, iaitu Prof. Datin sendiri dan Profesor Madya Dr. George. Manakala pensyarah lain sedang melanjutkan pelajaran di dalam dan di luar negara. Mereka berdua turut mengajar subjek mikrobiologi di Fakulti Pergigian USIM. Prof. Datin Dr. Cik Ilina telah mencetuskan idea untuk menerbitkan buku praktikal mikrobiologi yang digunakan oleh pelajar perubatan dan pergigian. Buku yang telah memasuki edisi kedua tersebut sangat membantu pensyarah dan pelajar dalam proses pembelajaran. Di peringkat kebangsaan, Prof menulis beberapa bab di dalam buku bertajuk Adult Immunisation yang dihasilkan oleh Malaysia Society of Infectious Diseases and Chemotherapy MSIDC untuk digunapakai oleh pengamal perubatan. Selain itu, antara jasa Prof adalah pencetus idea untuk menganjurkan kuis mikrobiologi di peringkat intervarsity di USIM yang dikenali sebagai iMicrobe. Dan pertandingan ini diadakan setiap tahun sebelum tahun 2020. Dan amat terkenal di kalangan warga Fakulti Perubatan dan Fakulti Pergigian Universiti, awam dan swasta tempatan. InsyaAllah pertandingan ini akan diteruskan ke peringkat antarabangsa. Beliau juga aktif memberi sumbangan idea dan kepakaran dalam melawan wabak COVID-19. Di peringkat awal pandemik, Prof telah membentuk satu kumpulan yang terdiri daripada pensyarah bidang kesihatan awam, mikrobiologi, kesihatan keluarga dan perubatan dalaman untuk menghasilkan 10 buah video mengenai COVID-19 dan juga vaksin. Video-video tersebut telah ditayangkan di media sosial, YouTube dan juga dikongsikan dengan Kementerian Kesihatan Malaysia. Kumpulan yang sama juga berjaya menghasilkan sebuah e-book mengenai topik yang sama. Di samping itu, Prof. Datin Dr. Cik Ilina turut aktif memberikan ceramah berkaitan COVID-19 di sekolah-sekolah, di masjid, jabatan dan media sosial. Dia juga turut berpeluang bercakap mengenai COVID-19 dan hasil penyidikan dalam sesi yang dikendalikan oleh Prof. Muhayya di Facebook. Prof turut terlibat dalam projek penyidikan berkaitan COVID-19 iaitu kajian klinikal di Pusat Perubatan UKM, kajian makmal di Universiti Melaya dan kajian soal selidik mengenai kesedaran masyarakat berkaitan COVID-19 dan vaksin secara atas talian. Hasil penyelidikan tersebut telah berjaya menghasilkan beberapa artikel dalam jurnal termasuk yang berstatus Q1 dan hasil penyelidikan tersebut juga turut dibentangkan kepada Kementerian Kesihatan Malaysia. Prof. Datin Dr. Cik Ilina banyak bekerjasama dengan syarikat farmaseutical dan agensi luar dalam program kemasyarakatan dan penyelidikan. Antaranya ialah projek penyelidikan mengenai kebersihan tangan di kalangan kanak-kanak tadika dan juga yang sumbangan daripada Mundi Pharma Sdn Bhd, Bengkel Kawalan Infeksi untuk guru-guru tadika yang dapat sumbangan daripada Kerajaan Negeri Selangor. Ada juga di sana projek penghasilan video pendek kesihatan yang dikerjasamakan dengan tabung haji. Beliau juga telah dijemput membuat pembentangan di persidangan antarabangsa di Hong Kong dan Filipina berkaitan antiseptik. Melalui jalinan industri dan farmasutikal yang dimiliki oleh beliau, syarikat-syarikat farmasutikal dan pemodalan nasional berhad PNB turut menyumbang kepada kejayaan persidangan yang dianjurkan oleh Fakulti Perubatan dan Sains Kesihatan USIM. Falsafah Profesor Datin Dr. Cik Ilina. Dia punya falsafah. Teamwork and sharing platforms with young lecturers towards development in their career pathways. Ini satu yang murni ya. Satu tepukan kepada pembidato kita. This is part of prosumerism. Learn more, make more and share more. Prof. Datin mempunyai hubungan yang sangat baik dengan staf akademik dan juga bukan akademik. Beliau sering meluangkan masa dan memberi tunjuk ajar serta menjadi mentor kepada pensyarah-pensyarah terutamanya di unit microbiologi dan juga unit-unit lain. Selain dari itu, beliau banyak menganjurkan dan mencetuskan program-program untuk staf bukan akademik seperti kelas memasak dan kelas menjahit yang dikendalikan oleh guru profesional. Sebagai ahli kelas menjahit yang diketuai oleh Dr. Nurul Kharmila Abdullah telah berjaya menjahit 100 sarung bantal yang telah didermakan kepada pesakit kanser. Semasa awal pandemik COVID-19 pula, Profesor Madya Dr. Azlina Mokhtar telah mengetuai projek menjahit Personal Protective Equipment PPE untuk kaki tangan perubatan di Malaysia ni. Prof disayangi oleh pelajar-pelajar kerana beliau seorang yang pemurah dan penyayang. Beliau sering menyumbang wang dan hadiah untuk pelajar yang cemerlang. Selain bidang mikrobiologi, Prof. Datin Dr. Cik Ilina juga terbabit dalam menganjurkan kursus Empowering English Workshop for Medical Students di bawah kelolaan Asian Institute for Development Communication secara percuma. So, satu tepukan lagi. Program yang melibatkan pelajar tahun 4 dan 5 tersebut memfokuskan kepada self-awareness, workplace civility, personal branding and challenging conversations. Saya mengucapkan tahniah kepada Prof kerana memilih topik yang amat penting pada hari ini kepada kita di mana ianya akan meningkatkan kesedaran terhadap kepentingan imunisasi orang dewasa. Prof juga merupakan aset kepada USIM dan negara kesayangan kita ni. Di kesempatan ini, saya mengucapkan ribuan terima kasih kepada jawatan kuasa penganjur, hero-heroin behind the scenes. Kalau tak ada mereka, semua acara seperti ini tak berjaya. Kerana telah menjayakan program ini. Kehadiran semua tetamu, jemputan adalah sangat dihargai. Semoga amal dan usaha kita ini untuk ummah mendapat keberkatan dari pencipta kita Allah SWT. Sekian, wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih Yang Bahagia Naib Chancellor di atas ucapan yang diberikan sebentar tadi. Hadirin dan hadirat sekalian, mari kita sama-sama melihat dan menikmati persembahan tayangan multimedia mengenai Yang Bahagia Profesor Datin Dr. Cik Ilina Cik Isahak yang telah disediakan. Selamat menonton.
Some people come into your life and you know right away that they were meant to be there, to serve a greater purpose, to teach you a lesson, or to guide and inspire you to become the best version of yourself. This is the amazing real-life story of a microbiologist extraordinaire who has achieved great success in the field of virology and vaccinology. Professor Datin Dr. Ilina always describes her job as a medical doctor and a lecturer as fulfilling. She truly believes that this road will lead her to Jannah. Professor Datin Dr. Ilina Isahak was born on the 8th of January 1952 in Kelantan. Her father, Dato' Isahak Abdul Hamid, was a lawyer, while her mother, Datin Wan Zainab Wan Ahmad, was a businesswoman. Both parents were prominent politicians and always served the community. Their passion for championing issues of the community inspired Professor Ilina to follow in their footsteps, and until today, she has been involved in various community outreach services. Professor Ilina is married to Dato' Dr. Abdul Samad Sakijan, and they are blessed with 2 children, Faizal and Farisha. She received her primary education at Zainab School in Kota Baru and secondary education in Tunku Kursia College, Seremban. From a very young age, Professor Ilina loves to dance. While at Tunku Kursia College, she had performed on various occasions, and even in front of the royals of Negeri Sembilan, as she has a penchant for dancing. With her excellent academic achievement, she was offered to pursue medicine at the University of Malaya and graduated in 1977. Upon graduation, Professor Ilina and her fellow medical graduates were offered housemanship posts by the government of Malaysia. At the time, the salary offered was rather low, and they responded by refusing to accept the offer. With their due diligence, the government had raised the salary for medical housemanship, which conferred a huge success as the increment had been significant. The young Professor Ilina began her career at the Kuala Lumpur General Hospital. Upon completion of housemanship, she joined University Kebangsaan Malaysia UKM as a trainee lecturer. She was subsequently offered by UKM to further her study at the University of London, followed by training at the King's College Hospital in London. Her job as an academician and a researcher provided the opportunity to travel around the world. Professor Ilina have represented Malaysia at various meetings and conferences abroad, one of the most memorable of which was the trip to France for the Advanced Vaccinology course with a study grant from Sanofi Pasteur. It was her mentor, Professor Dr. Farida Jamal, who not only shaped her early career and encouraged her to specialize in the field of virology, but also patiently provided guidance and motivation throughout Professor Ilina's career. The petite Professor Ilina is always approachable, energetic, and outgoing. She is often surrounded by other young lecturers, either brainstorming research projects, discussing the next publications, planning for community outreach activities, or hosting cooking classes or sewing for charity. The formal and informal meetings have created special bonds, thus enhancing Professor Ilina's function as a guru or mentor in the Faculty of Medicine and Health Sciences, University Science Islam Malaysia. Guru is a Sanskrit term for a mentor, guide, expert or master of certain knowledge or field, and it is the most accurate word to describe her personality and function. Professor Ilina always tells us that as a teacher or lecturer, do not make yourself indispensable. If nobody can take your place, you are not a good teacher. As an icon in the field of infectious disease and infection control, Professor Ilina, along with her team, had the opportunity to collaborate with various industries and government bodies such as the Tabung Haji, Majlis Agama Islam Wilayah Persekutuan, Majlis Perbandaran Ampang Jaya, and the Selangor State Department With sponsorship from Mundi Pharma, she developed a module on hand hygiene for preschools and conducted intervention programs using Android device applications in Selangor and Wilayah Persekutuan. During the recent pandemic, she was invited on various platforms to give her expert opinion and advice on COVID-19 infection and the COVID-19 vaccine. Jalaluddin Muhammad Rumi, a famous Persian poet, once wrote, "Everyone has been made for some particular work, and the desire for that work has been put in every heart. Let yourself be silently drawn by the stronger pull of what you really love." This poem has been proven true by Professor Ilina. We believe that everyone in their life has at least one person that has touched or influenced them. To all of us today, that one special person is Profesor Datin Dr. Ilina.
Hadirin dan hadirat yang dihormati sekalian. Kini, tibalah masanya kita ke acara kemuncak bagi program syarahan perdana ini. Dijemput Yang Bahagia Profesor Datin Dr. Ilina Isahak untuk menyampaikan syarahan perdana beliau yang bertajuk Adult Immunisation from Research to National Policy. Dipersilakan, Prof.
Kenapa ada straight away ni? Nanti belum. Nanti jap. Nanti mana ada slide. Kenapa pergi? Sekejap aja. Nanti jap. Okay. Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamun ala asyrafil anbiya wal mursalin sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. All praise is due to Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Blessings and salutations upon Nabi Muhammad, peace be upon him. We ask Allah Subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless Nabi Muhammad, his family and his companions. Yang berbahagia Datuk Naib Chancellor Profesor Datuk Dr. Muhammad Rizwan Al-Wahidi. Yang berbahagia timbalan-timbalan Naib Chancellor, para ahli Senat, para dekan dan pengarah, para profesor, Profesor Madya, pensyarah, pelajar FPSK dan hadirin yang saya hormati. I present my first chapter of my life that is in UKM. It's the presenting adult immunization from research to national policy. Immunization is one of the greatest public health achievements. Proven has effective intervention in reducing and preventing infectious diseases, and it can also be used to prevent and treat cancers. Vaccines contain dead or live weakened germ or its product that can cause disease or cancer. Immunization stimulates the immune system so that it can recognize the germ or its product and protect you from future infection. Immunization produces antibodies and memory cells. Okay. Adult immunization is an neglected and underprivileged issue in this region. Okay, a substantial proportion of vaccine-preventable morbidity and mortality occurs among adults worldwide, resulting in substantial economic loss. Planning and implementation of immunization programs. For the government to adopt immunization programs, the ability of the vaccine that can reduce the disease burden, and the vaccine has to be safe, efficacious, and cost-effective. Epidemiology of the disease in the country is important. The strategy is to immunize before the age-related peak incidence of the disease. The Ministry of Health Malaysia also subscribes to health technology assessment, which is based on scientific evidence in decision-making process at various levels of healthcare. I've been involved in at least 4 programs, National Rubella Program, National Hepatitis B, and Influenza Vaccination Health Recommendation, and the National Human Papillomavirus Program. Rubella. Rubella in pregnant women can cause rubella syndrome in the baby, which can be microcephaly, patent ductus arteriosus, and cataracts. We did the study in 1984, a hospital-based serological survey of rubella antibody amongst the nursing staff in Hospital Kuala Lumpur. It's found that the prevalence of rubella antibody is about 65%. Ministry of Health carried out a pilot project of the prevalence of rubella antibody in school children and childbearing age women. This is done before the National Immunisation Program. It was done in 4 states, Selangor, Johor, Penang, and Terengganu, from July to December 1985. And UKM received specimens from the state of Selangor. The objectives of the pilot project, the 3 objectives: 1, to provide information on the local prevalence of immunity among Form 1 and Form 2 school girls, and women of childbearing age, and thirdly, the rubella vaccine effectiveness and safety in these 2 groups. The schoolgirls had a rubella infection rate of 29%, and in women of childbearing age, it had a rubella rate of 47.9%, and the average infection rate was 39.7%. The overall seroconversion rate following vaccination was 89.1%. So it is not 100%, it's only 89.1%. And about 23 persons reported side effects, mainly due to fever, joint pains, and lymphadenopathy. The national rubella immunization first rolled out in Negeri Sembilan in 1987, and by 1988, rubella immunization was incorporated in the national expanded programs for immunization throughout the whole country. In 1987, Malaysia, we adopted a selective rubella immunization for adolescent girls, which is incorporated as part of the school immunization program, and immunization of non-immune child-age women in the clinic ibu dan kanak-kanak. So it was a 2-pronged attack. When the National Rubella Immunization Program was first launched, there was resistance from the Muslim community due to the suspected gelatin content in the vaccine. The source of the gelatin may be bovine or porcine, from beef or from pork. Porcine source is unacceptable to the Muslim community. So we had to solve this halal issue. I was given the privilege to present a technical paper on the production of rubella vaccine used by Ministry of Health to the National Fatwa Committee at Pusat Islam. So what I explained was that the rubella vaccine contains the virus which cultured in human diploid cells, and it was harvested, and later it was utilized in fluid medium which contains most of the sugars and glutamic acid and other amino acids. And the final vaccine was free from animal serum, but it also contains some human albumin and antibiotics like neomycin or kanamycin. And rubella vaccine the fatwa was that rubella vaccine used in the national program Ministry of Health is clean for injection, and in order to prevent rubella is permissible. So before the program, you can see that the percentage of the serous prevalence is between 59 to 65%. And in 2002, Zamri Sakawi here. Okay, we did together on serosurveillance of pregnant women attending an antenatal clinic in HUKM. We found that it was increased to 92.3%. Okay, 14 years on, seropositivity of rubella antibodies in Malaysia proved to 92%. But the occurrence of congenital rubella syndrome still continued. Okay, so in 2002, the Ministry of Health changed the strategy to replace the monovalent measles and rubella vaccine to universal measles, mumps, rubella vaccine for all boys and girls at 1 year of age. So it is a universal, that means including boys and girls. Before it was only for schoolgirls and postnatal women. So the future for rubella immunization, after that the government changed. Malaysia adopted a 2-dose universal measles, mumps, rubella vaccinations administered to children at 1 year of age and the second dose at 6 to 7 years. So this strategy of 2-dose vaccination of children will mopping up a vaccination of susceptible childbearing age women and surveillance will enhance the elimination of rubella in this country. Not on to hepatitis B. Okay, in countries of low rate of infection, hepatitis B virus is transmitted primarily horizontally through sexual contact, intravenous drug use, and occasional exposure or regular household contact with infected persons. By contrast, hepatitis B infection in endemic country is recorded primarily resulting from vertical or perinatal transmission. In Southeast Asia in 1980s, the carrier rate was high as 15 to 20%. We did together with BU, we conducted a surgical study on jaundice neonates admitted to special care unit in the hospital Kuala Lumpur, which 16 of the neonates admitted with congenital hyperbilirubinemia had hepatitis, and 4 of these babies were HBs antigen positive. And 11.2% of the 418 mothers were hepatitis B carrier. So it shows that healthcare workers of special care nursery and other units admitted are of risk of contracting hepatitis B from high percentage of the HBs antigen positive mothers of jaundice neonates. So we made recommendation, routine HBs antigen and anti-HBs screening at antenatal booking, and that hepatitis B carriers are tested further for the HBe antigen because 80 to 90% of these HBe antigen carriers transmit the hepatitis B to the neonates. Okay. Another study I did was the effectiveness of hepatitis B vaccine in adults. Okay, hepatitis B vaccine, the first generation is a plasma-based vaccine. The second generation is a recombinant vaccine. So it is the first genetic vaccine. So a recombinant hepatitis B vaccine efficacy study was conducted in 50 healthy preclinical medical students of UKM. Okay. Seronegative subjects were vaccinated at 0, 1, and 6 month vaccination. After each vaccination, local and systemic reactions were recorded and blood samples were obtained at 1, 2, 3, 6, and 9 months for the serum titers for anti-HBs. So you can see that 1 month after the first dose, only 7% seroconverted, and at second dose, which is given 0, 1, 2, only at month 2, 57, and at 6 months, that means before the third dose, it increased to 79%. And after the third dose, we had 100% seroconversion rate, but this is in medical students, so they are young and healthy. Okay. The geometric mean titer is very impressive. Okay, it has the average is 18,000. So you can see that it is this genetic recombinant vaccine is very effective. Okay. Before in rubella, we had problems of the fatwa of the vaccine. So here, before the rollout, KKM presented the production of the recombinant vaccine to the Pusat Islam first. That means before the rollout. So you can see that in the production of recombinant hepatitis B vaccine, you see the plasmid from the bacteria is spliced, and the hepatitis B antigen gene is spliced and added onto the recombinant DNA, and it is the recombinant DNA is grown into yeast, and it is grown in fermentation tanks, and after that it's purified, extracted and purified. Okay, and in the Fatwa Committee National Conference on the 72nd Muzakara, it is that the committee decided that the vaccine for hepatitis B extracted from yeast was not najis as compared to the first generation, which was a plasma base, and it is permitted to be used due to the fact that yeast was pure. Then I did another project, hepatitis B vaccination catch-up program B initiative for secondary schools. With the permission of Ministry of Education, Parent Teachers Association, and cooperation from Smith Klein Beecham, did the hepatitis B vaccination programs in 8 secondary schools were initiated. Yeah, I also thank Prof. Nodia for doing at least in her 2 schools, student schools. For the program, okay, students and teachers attended seminars on hepatitis B and its prevention. Brochures with information and consent form were distributed to the students and also their parents. Only those who volunteered and consented were vaccinated with hepatitis B vaccine charged at a subsidized rate. And the thing is, students below 17, they are only given half dose. The program was a success because almost every child in the school was vaccinated. We used the Robin Hood concept where some children who do not afford to receive the vaccines for free. So no one is left behind. So these are the brochures and the guidebook used in the program. So for the future of hepatitis B reduction, vaccination strategies for prevention hepatitis B are effective, feasible, and well accepted. Efforts are underway towards elimination of hepatitis B. Since Malaysia's adoption of universal vaccination of infants in 1989, the HBs antigen prevalence has decreased from 2.5% to 0.4%. In 2006, Malaysian Ministry of Health launched the hepatitis B vaccination for teenagers program. So you can see that I acted before the Ministry of Health. It was a catch-up group to vaccinate those born before 1989, and the teenagers received the vaccination for free. Next, move on to something close to my heart, influenza. Okay, seasonal influenza kills as many as 250,000 to 500,000 people worldwide yearly. Vaccination is by far the most cost-effective medical intervention to combat seasonal influenza, and influenza vaccines are updated annually, so that's why we need a yearly vaccination. It is based on the epidemiological and virological data collected by the WHO-led Influenza Surveillance Network, and UKM is also part of the Influenza Surveillance Network. Importantly, these data are increasingly robustly as increasing number of national and cooperating reference laboratories contribute the seasonal influenza surveillance data. So I did another project, okay, the effectiveness of influenza vaccine in prevention of influenza-like illness in dental faculty, UKM. Okay. This project was conducted in May to September 2005 during the peak influenza activity. A total of 346 participants volunteered for the study. The results showed that the influenza vaccination significantly reduced influenza-like illness prevalence by 52.6%. And vaccination also provided indirect protection to family members or housemates of the vaccinated participants with 71.6% effectiveness. I'm so involved with the influenza vaccine effectiveness among Malaysian pilgrims in Mecca. We work together with IMR and also KKM, UKM, IMR, and KKM. Each year, approximately 2 million pilgrims travel to Saudi Arabia to perform the Hajj. People from around the world gather in crowded conditions where the risk of diseases transmission is high. We determine influenza vaccine effectiveness against clinically defined influenza-like illness, ILI, among Malaysian pilgrims attending Hajj in Mecca. It was done in the Hajj 2000. For the first time, the Malaysian Hajj Authority recommended that all pilgrims receive influenza vaccine together with the mandatory Pneumococcal vaccine stipulated by the Saudi government. So actually, we don't have to pay for the flu vaccine for these Hajj pilgrims. So, but it was a golden opportunity for us to do the study. Unlike Pneumococcal vaccine, influenza vaccine was not made compulsory and was given by the private healthcare providers. Okay. So in the study, we found that the adjusted vaccine effectiveness against clinical visits for influenza-like illness was 77%, and that against receipt of antibiotic was 66%. So from the result of our study, after the effectiveness of influenza vaccine among study, Tabung Haji adopted the policy of highly recommending influenza and also vaccinations in addition to the mandatory Pneumococcal vaccination stipulated by Saudi Arabian Authority. I'd like to say here that also Prof. Nodia Awan Jalil, she conducted the pneumococcal vaccination study in among the Hajj. So that's how it comes here. Also, the study was so it's very good, and that's why it comes out with the recommendation of both influenza and pneumococcal vaccinations. Okay, so these are the brochures we give out. We prepared for Adventist pasture, which was later adopted by the Tabung Haji. So these brochures are prepared by Prof. Nodia Awan Jalil for the pneumococcal and meningitis, and I covered the influenza. She is here in the room. And another study I did was the effectiveness of influenza vaccination among inhabitants of old folks' homes. So it's a cohort of 527 subjects. So we found that influenza vaccination is associated with a significant lower incidence of influenza-like illness over a period of 6 months. Okay, so at least it is effective for 6 months in persons more than 50 years living in an institutionalized in the tropic. Okay. In this study, we found that 48.3% of the study population had underlying chronic medical conditions like asthma, diabetes, hypertension, cerebrovascular disease. So complications and death from influenza are of particular concern in these people with certain high-risk medical conditions, primarily the elderly, adults, and children with cardiovascular and pulmonary conditions. The vaccine effectiveness in reducing the occurrence of influenza-like illness ranged from 55 to 76% during the 6 months follow-up. Recipients had fewer episodes of fever, cough, and muscle ache, runny nose, and experienced fewer sick days due to the respiratory illness. Next one, in the National Influenza Pandemic Preparedness Plan, I was also involved. The Ministry of Health has taken the lead in developing a workable preparedness plan, which is comprehensive yet multi-sectorial in nature. This plan, called the National Influenza Pandemic Preparedness Plan, is a document which serves as a prime time-bound guide for preparedness and response plans for influenza pandemic. Okay. It provides a policy and strategic framework for a multi-sectoral response and contains specific advice and actions to be taken by the Ministry of Health at different levels other governmental departments and agencies and non-governmental organizations to ensure that resources are mobilized and used most efficiently before, during, and after the influenza pandemic episode. So in a novel in 2009, a novel non-seasonal swine origin influenza A H1N1 emerged in Mexico in early 2009 and caused a worldwide pandemic. We evaluated the performance of rapid influenza diagnostic test methods, RIDT, compared to real-time reverse transcription polymerase chain reaction for the detection of the novel H1N1 in August 2009. I did this together with Prof. Zeti from UKM, which is here in the audience. Okay. So these diagnostic tests were able to detect the swine origin influenza virus in respiratory specimen. But you have to understand, just like the COVID RTK, a positive rapid influenza diagnostic result is helpful in deciding to start antiviral therapy due to the high specificity and positive predictive value. However, it's due to the rather low sensitivity and negative predictive value, a negative rapid influenza diagnostic test does not rule out influenza infection. So while positive results of influenza A has a high positive predictive value, it cannot distinguish between influenza A subtypes, which could be sign origin or seasonal influenza A virus. Okay, so UKM is also part of the National Influenza Surveillance. So we also receive grants from the government. Okay. So we analyzed 505 specimens collected during March 2001 to August by RT-PCR, in which 12.8 were positive for influenza A. This work is done by my PhD student, Dr. Wong. He is also in the audience. The identified isolates were successfully genotyped by phenotypic analysis and identified flu A genetics, which include H1N1, H3, and also avian flu H5. Okay, so we have the flu vaccine. Okay, traditional trivalent vaccine provide coverages against two influenza viruses, strain A, H1 and H3, and only one influenza B virus. Okay, but however, since 1980s, there are two influenza B lineage, the Yamagata and the Victoria lineage, which have been co-oscillating. So vaccine effectiveness is markedly reduced when there is a mismatch between the vaccine coverage and the circulating lineage of the flu B virus. Okay. And flu B infection is also prominent, especially in older adults, which can cause nursing home outbreaks. So the vaccine companies move on to develop quadrivalent influenza vaccine, which contain two flu A strain, H1 and H3, and two influenza B virus strains representing the both lineage, and which was made available since 2013. Okay. In conclusion, control and prevention of infections depends on surveillance system, research on epidemiology of the disease in the country. Successful introduction of the immunization program requires availability of budget and implementation of acquisition, storage, distribution, transport, and administration of the vaccine must be adequately trained to avoid mistake. In the event of anti-vaccine movement, healthcare providers and vaccine industries must provide evidence-based studies to refute the claims. Continuous education of physicians and public are important, and halal issue has to be addressed. So that's the first chapter of my life in research done in UKM. Cool. Now I would like to move on to my second chapter of my life in Fakulty Perubatan Sains Kesihatan USIM. I continued research in infection control in communities working with Novartis, Modipharma, Majlis Agama Islam Mawib, with Dr. Siti Mariah, Selangor State Government and Tabung Haji. In the beginning of the COVID pandemic, I initiated the FPSK COVID team. So you can see the list in the team, comprising of multidisciplinary physicians and scientists. I would like to invite the COVID team members to the stage. We started with a web-based study on knowledge, acceptance, and perception of COVID vaccine. The results were tabled to the Ministry of Health, and M. Hurshid took it to the next level and making it a nationwide scale study. We reached out to the public, giving talks, television interviews, newspaper interviews, talks to schools, mosques, influencers, Facebook, like live interviews with Prof. Dr. Mahaya, and also religious groups. We collaborated with HUKM on research and effectiveness of antiseptic goggles on COVID patients, that means real patients, and also we collaborated with PPUM on the in vitro studies, that means lab-based studies. We shared the results of this study in posters in the dog gift bag. So you can see the goggles that you use and the study poster. Okay. We developed short videos on understanding COVID and its preventive measures. We shared the videos with the Ministry of Health to upload in their platforms. You can access the videos at the pameran. We got a request from Ministry of Health to prepare Soal Jawab COVID-19, and here we present to you the launch of COVID Soal Jawab COVID-19 by my Stella FPSK COVID team. Okay. Okay, thank you. Please thank you also.
Dia look je, so you can say thank you.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. Alhamdulillah. Thank you, my thank you note. Alhamdulillah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the nikmat in life. I express my gratitude to my family for the loving and unconditional support. Special mention to my daughter, Dr. Farishano. She is my pillar and my guardian angel. Jazakallah khairan to my colleagues in UKM, USIM, Professor Dr. Nurati Hana Medik, Carol Kamilin, my friends forever, Professor Emeritus Farida Jamal, Professor Wasabi Hapit, Prof. Nodia, Prof. Zamri Sakawi, who made me very proud. My special thanks to Prof. Dr. Nurul Azmawati and video producer, Professor Zulkhairi. They are my CEOs. Okay, and also, of course, I want to thank my esteemed FPSK COVID team. Okay. My thanks to the AJK Syarahan Perdana and those present for making this a memorable, successful day. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us all. Thank you for coming.
Terima kasih Yang Bahagia Prof di atas penyampaian syarahan perdana itu tadi. dan juga kepada barisan pasukan COVID-19 FPSK USIM. Saya percaya segala intipati yang disampaikan tadi sangatlah berguna dan bermanfaat buat kita semua, insya-Allah. Kini majlis menjemput Yang Bahagia Profesor Dato' Dr. Muhammad Syamsir Muhammad Aris untuk mengiring Yang Bahagia Profesor Dato' Dr. Muhammad Reza Wahidin bagi menyampaikan sijil penghargaan kepada pemidato Yang Bahagia Profesor Datin Dr. Cik Ilina Cik Isahak. Pentas. Dipersilakan Yang Bahagia Nak Chancellor bagi menyampaikan sijil kepada pemidato. Seterusnya, dijemput Yang Bahagia Profesor Datin Dr. Cik Ilina Cik Isahak bagi menyampaikan cenderamata penghargaan kepada Yang Bahagia Profesor Dato' Dr. Muhammad Reza Wahidin di atas kesudian menghadiri program pada pagi ini. Terima kasih. Dijemput div-div kehormat untuk kembali ke tempat duduk. Kita telah pun sampai ke penghujung acara majlis. Sisir pelepah meraut lidi, menganyam daun atap jerami. Yang indah, yang berseri bawalah pergi, yang cacat, yang keji, tinggalkan buat kami. Di kesempatan ini, pihak penganjur ingin mengucapkan ribuan terima kasih sekali lagi kepada semua hadirin dan hadirat kerana telah bersama-sama memeriahkan majlis pada hari ini. Segala yang baik, yang indah dan yang sempurna itu datang daripada Allah SWT dan sama-samalah kita mensyukurinya, dan segala kekurangan dan kepincangan majlis ini adalah kekurangan daripada pihak kami dan kemaafan jua yang kami pinta. Dijemput semua yang berada di dalam Dewan Auditorium untuk berdiri di tempat duduk masing-masing dan bersedia bagi sesi fotografi.